Trail Seeker Adventures heads to round 4 of the US Sprint Enduro and round 3 of the SXCS in Harleywood, Virginia. We take you out on the sweet cross test and the enduro test. It was one of the most challenging so far this year. It got a little rough. Well, that freaking sucks. I had my fair share of problems, but I'll work my way to the finish. Let's check it out. That's right, the round 4 of the US Sprint Enduro had a full week of racing, but on Sunday was also round 3 of the SXCS. They wasn't able to use the track from last year, so they had to create a new one, which may have caught some people off guard. We also had to park in a different location. The only thing that was somewhat familiar was the enduro test. One thing for sure that didn't change is hanging out with friends that love racing dirt bikes. For many of us, this is a family affair. It's not just about racing, it's getting out, enjoying each other on an awesome race weekend. We were lucky to have Thad Duvall back in the house and on the track. After the youth wrapped up their morning race, it was time for the pros to hit the track. Lane Michael, Stu Baylor, Liam Draper, Thad Duvall, Johnny Gerard, Jesse Ansley, Ben Nako. It was going to be tight competition on the pro classes this weekend. Both the cross test and the enduro test was going to be challenging. It had rocks, dust, mud, clay, you name it. It was on the track. And each one of these pros were going to have to figure out how to go fast and not crash. But now it's my turn, and I'm racing the 40A class. With the amateur classes, they just start you random on the first test. No particular order. I believe I was starting about 5th. The way I'm going to do this video, as always, I'm going to get you a complete cross test. This is my first cross test of the day, and a complete enduro test of Saturday, day 1, and then I'm going to do a cross test and an enduro on day 2, so you can see how the track changed throughout the weekend. Alright, so we're hitting the cross test. Usually the cross test, my first cross test is usually the fastest that I can do because there's no ruts. I am not very good at ruts, but one thing I do tend to do is overshoot some turns, and I do that right away. Coming down through here, I knew it was turning left, but I didn't know it was going to turn left that soon. So I kind of ran off the track, get her back on the track, and now I'm already needing to make up some time. This cross test had many off cambers. I'm not a big fan of off cambers. This was one of the more tricky ones. As the day went, there was a ditch right there to the left. You didn't see it because the grass was still there. Obviously, several people didn't make the turn and ended up in the ditch because by the end of the weekend, you could tell that there was definitely a hole there that you did not want to be in. And as you can tell, I'm on my 2-stroke. I'm riding the 2020 Beta 300 RR non-race edition with the Race Tech Gold Valve conversion kit. Last year I complained about the suspension on this thing all summer. And at the last race, the SXCS round 2, I was able to get the old 2-stroke out compared to the 4-stroke. Even though I was faster on the 4-stroke, it was a little bit of a unfair advantage due to I started on the front row with the 4-stroke and started on about the 4th row of the 2-stroke. If you're wondering how I raced both bikes at the same time, it was a GP, and you'll have to watch it. That was round 2 of the SXCS.
So Kenny talks about him being out there at the US Sprint Enduro and SXCS, but guess what? I was there too, even though I didn't make the highlight clip at the beginning. So I'm just gonna say my Xtrainer 300 Beta 2021 did not disappoint again. the first time out on the cross test, I definitely had moments of you would go straight and then there would be a turn and then another turn. So it really took some effort, to find out what the track was like, figure out where to go. But after that, my times got faster and I ended up winning, I think, all 6 cross tests in my class. One thing I need to try to remember is I'm racing against the clock and I'm racing against people in my class. It's very easy for me to want to push harder and catch up with the class in front of me, but once I just got to learn my pace and keep improving each test.
That's right, Heidi. Pushing too hard and making that mistake is definitely not what you want to do. I'm actually starting to catch a guy in front of me, and this is going to be Dave Glenn. You're going to see this guy's jersey throughout the weekend. You can never tell, like, I'm catching this guy, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm pretty much got him covered, but he may be having a bad first cross test, and come to find out he hasn't raced for a while. So this is his first race back for a while, and he's definitely going to improve throughout the weekend. So, as I say, you catch somebody, you never want to follow them, and that's the goal here, is try to get around him. I'm already ahead of him in time, but just because I'm catching him doesn't mean there's not somebody behind me catching me. So I can't be sitting here and waiting for the perfect opportunity to get around him. I gotta make time. I gotta figure out the best way to get around. Obviously, he's in my class, so I'm not going to yell at him. I just gotta find out a way to get around him. I think he pulled over out of my way. Talking to the gentleman throughout the weekend. He's a pretty cool guy. The track definitely had some rocks in this location. It's a little sketchy for me. My main goal is to do as good as I can without crashing. I've had 2 races so far. The last 2 races I haven't did a dirt sample, and as you watch our videos, you know that that is very rare for me not to do a dirt sample at least once or twice throughout the weekend. So we're coming down into the finish line. I did bike the test, the cross test earlier. I think it was Friday evening. I got up and was able to look at most of it. I mostly focused on the Enduro test. I overshoot this turn, look like a goon in front of everybody. And that is one round, my first round on the cross test on day 1. So I'll go back, give Heidi a little update, and get ready for test 2, which is the Enduro. That's a little scary. It's got slick spots. The US Sprint Enduro uses Moto Tally to check your times. Heidi's good about checking, keeping updated on our times. I particularly try not to pay no attention. I just go out and do the best I can. Sometimes if I know I'm just a second back or in front or whatever, it makes me more nervous and I make more mistakes. So I try not to pay no attention of how good I'm doing, but most of the time I end up falling to peer pressure and checking it out and see where I stand. So now we're on test 2, which is the Enduro test. I wait my 15 seconds and I grab the old throttle and let the 2-stroke sink. We run a little field section before we hit the woods. As Heidi was saying, we went out and biked we didn't mountain bike. We walked. I only got one e-bike, so we walked. We had our dog with us, so he likes going out and walking the trails. I had my lines picked out. I knew where I wanted to go, where I wanted to be. And I came out, and this first section of woods, pretty much the first mile, the dirt was kind of like a gravel substance. It had not, it's hard to explain. It was soft. It did rut up, but it had big chunks of rocks, and it's almost like riding on gravel in many of the locations. There was somebody put a tree across the track, and I had to break it to get through it. I had a line clear up to the right, but this middle line, which when I biked it, I thought that would be like the last place anybody would go. But that was the main line. I had a line here to the left. Everybody else was going to the right. Here I cut down because I wanted to cut tight on the exit. Now I did have this line right up here. I actually made it through here. And I actually think it was a pretty good line. But I only got to hit it like 3 or 4 times. It was really weird because the lines I wanted to hit, it was hard to get out of the main line in order to go hit your line. This line up through here got pretty rough. We came out and walked it after the end of the day, and the line to the right was definitely faster. It was smoother. The video don't really show how off camber this is. So that was the challenging, was the loose soil on an off camber hill. Definitely would catch you off guard here and there, and you can't really see it, but they were like baseball sized rocks. You had to watch for that. Throughout the weekend, those got thrown off. They were just surface rocks. But it's funny how you walk a course, and then when you come out to race it, even though we're in the A class, and the A class is one of the first ones to get to come out and tackle the track, how much it looks different when you get out here and actually try to hit your lines. You kind of think about where the main line's going to be, and then where your options will be on the track in case it gets rough, or where it's faster or slower. So we're coming over here, we're on one side of the mountain, we're coming down into a valley. There's a pond here to the right, and then we're going up on the other side of the valley. It's one of the little lines I had, which I ran it pretty much all day. It gave you a little better setup for that off-camber left-hand turn. Well, on the other side of the valley, the dirt was totally different. It was really weird. It was like on this side of the hill, it's wet, or it was loose, gravelly type of soil. Now you're coming across the valley, past the pond, up the little sky jump, and then now you're on the other side of the hill. And we raced this when last year, the last few years, actually we were on both sides, but now you're up here and the dirt is totally different. There's a little topsoil. This is a new hill that Billy put in for us, but now you're on some existing trail and it's red clay. There is not a rock to be found over here. So the US Sprint Enduro put in a track to where you really had to set your bike up for 2 different types of soil, 2 different types of speed. This was red clay. It rained the night before, not real bad, but it was still a little slick. Get the 2-stroke of singing up the hills. This is one of my favorite sections. I like the rocky stuff, but This rocky stuff was a little different just because the soil was so loose. You really couldn't hold your front end that well. But as the weekend went, the first mile where it was pretty tough, it got actually faster. I think we pushed all the loose stuff off and he was able to push a little harder. There was a little line here to the left. If you didn't look for it, you couldn't see it right here. It's a pretty sweet little hot line. If you come in there too fast, you'll not be able to catch it. As you can see, there's ribbon on both sides. The US Sprint Enduro, they're good about giving you options, and sometimes options are not always a good thing. You go out and you try to pick the best lines, and the lines you pick sometimes are not the best lines. Like through here, it's pretty tight. There was a few options, but you really only had one option that was fast, and that makes your job as a rider a little easier. But it definitely makes it a little more challenging when you can pick lines. I definitely like the options. Like there's a line to the right there. I went this line every time except one time when it counted. And I think I might have that video on the second day. So on the cross test, we went out randomly and I ended up third. I think I was only like 7 seconds from first. So I was third. A few seconds ahead of me was second, and a few seconds ahead of him was first. So I definitely messed up on the cross test a few times that I could have made up that 7 seconds. So I thought, Enduro, I'm better at Enduro. I'm going to push real hard, and I'm going to try to get to the front. Well, I'm running third here. I finished, and I lost time. The gentlemen in first and second, they're definitely faster in the woods than I wanted to go. So I ended up third. Pretty much all weekend. I think actually this test I was faster than the guy in first. I was only faster than him by a few seconds. And that's Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson led the entire day, but I did beat him on this test. Only about 1 second. He had a 10:21.7 and I had a 10:20.9. And the guy in second had a 10. He beat both of us with a 10:17. Cross test, Brian had a 5:31.2, and then Greg Smith had a 5:36.8, and then I had a 5:38.5. So we're running about 5.5 minutes on cross test, and we're running about 9.5 to 10 minute enduro test. But that's pretty much the way I finished day one. This is the very first cross test and the very first enduro test. Brian Johnson ended up first. Greg Smith was second. I was third. Dave Glenn ended up fourth. Tim was fifth. Aaron was sixth. As we're working on our way back to the finish, I had a greenbrier that wrapped around my arm for the last mile. Every time I returned, it was digging into my elbow. Old friend Jay, this is his first trip out for the US Enduro.
Yeah, it bucked me the whole way.
After sitting here talking with Jay, I went to go back to the truck and I had no brakes. So I had to change out my brakes, and then I also got a flat tire going to the start one time. But other than that, wasn't too bad.
So here I am wrapping up day 1, test 3 of the Enduro. One of the things I had to deal with was fallen riders. So it is important to give yourself some time. You may not want to leave at 5 seconds. You might want to give the full 15, maybe even a little bit extra if you're in between a class. It really helps a lot. It would be smart if you have time to walk the track, especially after day 1, and pick some good lines.
All right, after finishing day 1, 3rd for the day, I will get credit for 3rd for Saturday, but now it's Sunday and this is day 2. This will count as points for not only the US Sprint Enduro, but also the SXCS series. So it's a little confusing. You take the 2 scores from Saturday and Sunday, that will give you your overall. But you get credit for 2 races on this weekend, one from your results on Saturday and one from your results on Sunday. But since this is a co-sanctioned event, the SXCS, you also will get credit for wherever you come in overall for Saturday. So if I get first, I'll get first for the US Sprint Enduro, but also first for the US or the SXCS. No, this ain't confusing at all. But now we're getting ready. This is test 1 on day 2, the cross test. You seen the first cross test? It was nice grass, no ruts, the rocks weren't kicked up. Now you can see that the grass is pretty much gone in the main line, and it's not slick from the grass, it's slick from the dust. So I learned my lesson here not to run into the weeds to slow me down. But I'm pretty much just gonna let you watch this complete cross test. One thing I do want to go ahead and say, in case this is the first time you came across one of our videos, we are Trail Seeker Adventures. Heidi and I, we grab the camera, we take it out to every weekend that we have an adventure. This weekend we're at the round 4 of the US Sprint Enduro, but every race that we go, or whether we're on a hiking trail, mountain bike trail, if we go to a ride park, we bring the camera, we bring the information back to you. That way you can check it out and see if it's an event that you would want to take part in. That way you figure it out before you even get off the couch and load your bike. We've been to the Hatfield McCoy's trails, Croom Motorcycle Park. We've been out west riding the side of mountains like billy goats. We've been to, this year we've been to GNCC, we've been to the Mountain State Hare Scramble, New East Coast, SXCS, US Sprint Enduro, and you can check all those videos out. Make sure you check out Trail Seeker Adventures, make sure you like our videos, and make sure you subscribe, that way you don't miss our next event. Now I know subscribing sometimes is a little confusing. If you're on an iPhone or some type of portable device, usually there's a little red logo at the bottom of the right hand side of your screen. You just click on that and you can subscribe that way. I was talking to a gentleman that was parked beside us. He says, hey, I watch your videos, but I can't figure out how to subscribe to your channel. He watches on his house TV, and basically if you can find the logo, you arrow up, find our logo, click on the logo, and then that will take you to our page and you're able to hit the subscribe button. Now one of the benefits on the cross test is you can kind of keep an eye of your competition. You can see the guy ahead of you, if you're catching or gaining any time on him, and the guy behind you. I felt that I had a pretty good cross test going on. I could see the guy right in front of me. He left 15 seconds ahead of me. I thought I was actually gaining on him a little bit. Felt pretty good about my cross test. I didn't see the guy behind me, so I thought I was maybe losing him a little bit there. So I come down, bike's running awesome. Never had no issues with this bike at all. I get up here, and you ever hear something go wrong, you hear wah wah. Yep, something went wrong, and my bike is going wah wah wah.
Well, that freaking sucks.
That is frustrating. I'm like, what the heck? It just shut off. It's run perfectly. Thought, did a gas line come off? I flipped it on reserve, fires right up, and we're off. So that was, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds. So I'm grateful. Thank the good Lord that she fired back up, but that was a little confusing. So now I've got to try to pick up some time on the sketchiest part of the track. As you can see, there's a lot of rocks being exposed, and unfortunately one of them hit my chest mount camera and knocked it up so you can see my helmet. But we're not too far from the finish, so we'll work our way back into the finish. Unfortunately, I'm not able to use, or I'm not supposed to use the helmet mount. I'm using a chest mount, and I think I got a pretty decent handle on the chest mount. The only thing is, I do notice that we get a lot more wind noise when it's on the chest mount, and then you also seem to hit it off your gas tank or your handlebars or your helmet, and it gets jacked up like this, and you don't realize it until you get back and Heidi says, hey, your camera's pointing straight up. But I'm trying to make up some time, hoping the bike don't shut back off. I get back into the finish, I checked the bike out, I put more gas in it, and I thought, well, maybe it was just a piece of dirt or something in the carburetor, and just had my fingers crossed and hoped for the best. I was going to run the 4-stroke. I was going to run the 2-stroke one day and the 4-stroke the next day, but I had a pretty good feel for the 2-stroke, and you just never know once you get out there if the suspension's not really going to feel good on this particular type of track. So I knew what I had, so I was stuck with the 2-stroke. But after it shut off, I was just wondering if I made the right decision.
Just shut off for no reason. It's slick, but my bike just shut off for no reason. I don't know what the deal with it was.
So did you not do good?
I was doing awesome. I was catching second, and then come down that jump, it just shuts off. I tried to just start it, wouldn't start. Pull over, just flipped it over on reserve, but that shouldn't be the problem. And it started up, and
You have the gas on?
yeah, it was on.
Alrighty, now this is actually the last test of the day. After my cross test and my bike shut off, I actually went from 3rd back to 5th. And part of the being with this particular group, we're all pretty equal in speed, but the guy that was in 5th, he says, hey, you're faster than me on the Enduro. I don't want to hold you up. I'm going to let you go ahead and go ahead of me, and I appreciate that. But now I'm setting in 4th, and basically this is the last test. And the reason why I'm in 4th, because when I went out on the 2nd Enduro, the bike shut off again. Luckily, I was on the way down a hill. It shut off. I caught the gentleman right here in front of me in red, Dave Glenn. I caught him, but then my bike shut off, and I was afraid to run it too hard. I did gain some time, but I can't remember. I think I did actually pass him just by a second or so. Then on the cross test, I decided I better take it a little easy, try to milk this bike to the finish. And then I did it also on the 2nd Enduro, and I gave up way too much time. And I went out on the last cross test, 4th. I'm like, man, I gotta hammer down, let this sucker eat. And I did the best I could on the cross test, and I was like 1 second behind him starting on this Enduro test. and I thought I'll give him 15 seconds. I knew I was usually faster than him on the first half of the enduro test, but he was pretty fast on the last half of the enduro test. So I gave him his 15 seconds, maybe a little extra, and I thought I gotta try to catch him on the first half, and then all I needed to do was to gain a second and a half, I think, just to make sure. So I had these new little lines. Heidi and I came out, we walked. This was one line that we caught because above that tree there, it got so rutted and rooty. You wanted to take the time to get the off-camber left-hand turn so you can get a good straight shot at the right-hand turn. This tree jump, it was there all weekend, and I never realized that somebody piled trees on it to make it to where it's a lot easier to jump up over, but I didn't want to screw up, so I knew that going over the tree was faster unless you wrecked, and then it's a lot slower, so I just took my same line every time. But as you can see, the lines are a lot more developed. All the loose dirt has been pushed off the off-camber side of the hill. You got definite ruts that you can catch. Here's a line to the right I jump in. Looks like I'm not the only one that found that. You can see a lot of bark off of trees from people's bark busters. Several different lines choices throughout here. And here I used to go left, but that line got way too rough, so we went and started going right. Just trying to stay smooth. I didn't wreck all day. I didn't want on my last enduro to be a crash. I did hit a tree pretty hard with my shoulder right in this area. There was a line here to the left that nobody was using, or not very many people was using. Right here. Oh, I missed it there. A drop down in it. Definitely felt better on day 2 on the enduro. I think everybody did. I think just about everybody's time got faster. So the 2 tests that I took it easy on, the bike didn't shut off. But before that, I did go and drain the carburetor. Thought maybe it was a dirt situation in the carburetor, plugging up the main jet. But coming after the race, talking to a friend, AW, it was more so sounds electrical because it just shuts straight off. The weird thing is it'll start straight back up. If you try to drift start it, it won't fire up. If you pull your clutch in and let it drift a little while without turning over, and then it will fire right up. But there's AW, #1 course marshal. I hear ahead of me, I'm catching the guy. I can hear him coming up across this straightaway, so I know I'm not too far behind him. I see the dust. So I know I'm in a good spot right now. And yes, it's only a battle for third, but it's not only a battle for third for the US Sprint Enduro. I pretty much had third for the weekend summed up. I had like 20 some seconds left over from Saturday, so I would have to lose 19 seconds in order to lose third for the weekend. But in order to get third for, I got third Saturday, round 4, but in order to get third for today, I would have to gain a second, but also that will give me third for the SXCS series, which I'm currently first in the SXCS series, but it's easy for me to say, right? But I'm currently second in the US Sprint Enduro 40A series or class. So I see him ahead of me. I hear him. Unfortunately, he caught my little line when he followed me because he took the long way around. And this little hot line is good for probably about 3 seconds. Right here. If you missed that you probably lost about 3 seconds. And you don't think 3 seconds is very much, but it's a lot in this format. But it helps you to realize it's a lot in every format. If you're running a 2-hour GNCC, if you lose a second in every turn, you're minutes behind with 1 lap. So this series definitely helps you realize how important every second, every turn, every mistake is. But the tricky part is going fast enough to gain time, but not too fast where you're going to screw up and hit a tree. So I see him up there. This is where he goes right. And on the first enduro test, he went right, and I should have went left. I could have got around him. But he's fast from here on out. I don't think I see him the rest of the trip back. But unfortunately, the little gremlin will come back. As you can see, he's gone. And I'm twisting on this little 2-stroke as hard as I can. So the first mile is pretty technical. This last mile is pretty fast and flowy. You definitely had options. There's a right line right here. I felt it was a lot faster. He always went left. I felt that was a faster line. But we're coming down to the spot, I think, where the bike shuts off. This is the next right-hand turn. Running good, sounds good, and all of a sudden, pull the clutch in, let the bike completely quit, and then it fires back up. But if I'm like the first enduro coming down through here, it shut off, and I tried to drift it all the way down the hill, it would not fire up right through here. It shut off. I drifted all the way down through here. I had to pull the clutch in, let it completely die, and then bump it, and it's fired right up. But long story straight, I was able to catch up, make up that 1 second. I ended up like 0.8 of a second ahead of him. So I ended up third. So Brian Johnson won both day 1 and day 2 and won for the weekend. Greg Smith was the same. He was second both day 1 and day 2, and I was third both day 1 and barely day 2, and Dave Glenn ended up 4th. Tim ended up 5th on day 1, but unfortunately his bike broke on his bike broke on day 2 on the first lap, so he didn't get credit. And Aaron, he was, I believe, 6th and then 5th on day 2.
Good job, man. You shut off going down the hill. I don't think I lost any time, but what's that? You go down? It's shut off. But I pulled the clutch in and let it drift. I think it still must be getting dirt on the bottom of the jet. When it shuts off, it must drop back off. That sucks. But you're tough through that last half hour, so man, I can't get you. I can
For the pros, Lane Michael was able to pull off the weekend win. Stu Baylor was second. Liam Draper was third. And Thad was able to come in fourth. It's good to have Thad back. Johnny Gerard was able to pull off another win. Jesse Ansley was second, and Ben Nilko ended up third for the weekend.
So here we are, day 2 of the US Sprint Enduro, and Sunday is SXCS. I'm here at the last Enduro test of the day. Now, some people might be like, oh, the race is almost over, that's awesome. But to some of us racers, this is where we can screw up our lead that we have been working on all day and all weekend. So I get so nervous on this test, and I just always say to myself, stay calm, pick your lines, don't mess up, keep your momentum, feel the pegs. There's a whole conversation that I say to myself. This Enduro test, as Kenny said, was definitely trickier than the rest of them, but as I went through the weekends, my time got faster, especially I think it was test 2 of the Enduro, where my lead wasn't quite like I wanted it to, and I definitely picked up my time by like 2 minutes.
Yes,
So now here's the hill climb, and the 2 girls that passed me, I'm in the middle right there. Morgan was the first one, and then the C-Class was on the last one. There again, I wanted to race Morgan up the hill and had to remember she is not in my class, so let her pass. Morgan has definitely been stepping it up.
Here
I'm
she
very
comes.
proud of her.
She's gonna be glad to have this one over with.
But that hill climb was great. There was a couple times there was a girl stuck on the top of it, and I had to make some quick decisions. But AEW would be proud. I sucked it up and put on my big girl pants, and I made it up just fine every time.
Good job, sweetie. So very proud of you. Well, that's the end of this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Push the logo in the middle of the screen in order to subscribe. Thanks for watching.